Welcome to Circle Back to Sunday here at Victory Hill. We are so excited that you're here to join us as we circle back and dive deep into the message from Sunday's sermon. You are going to get to meet some of our pastoral team on an intimate level, as well as other members here at Victory Hill as we circle back to Sunday's sermon. Welcome back to Circle Back to Sunday as we are in our series of influence. And today I'm joined with an all-mothers group because it's Mother's Day.
Good morning. Happy Mother's Day.
Miss Mandy Hancock and Miss Katie O'Callahan. We have a little help behind the scenes with Miss Lily O'Callahan today.
She's supervising.
So we want to give her a little shout out because her mom's on the podcast. But it's been an amazing Mother's Day. But I was like, what better way to do this week than to just have moms, right?
That's right.
Right? And Chad preached an amazing sermon on Fight Like a Mother, which is hilarious to me that was the title. I'm kind of loving it. I'm here for it. But he did a great job. But I'm sorry, he's not a mom. So we're just going to keep it real with the moms in the group today. Right. So, but he started it off with a very long group of scripture. So I'm just going to kind of let you all know to reference it. Yeah. It is 2 Kings chapter 4, 8 through 37. Yeah. So if you haven't watched the sermon yet, or you just kind of want a refresher, those are the verses, because it would, I don't read it as well, so it would take me half of the podcast to read that.
Yeah, it is a pretty lengthy story, but such a powerful one.
It was a very powerful story, and he did a good job about breaking it down. But Katie, do you want to kind of recap what the story is about? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Just kind of in like layman terms.
I can tell you what I kind of remember.
What she got from it.
So you have this, it's a Shunammite, right? Mm-hmm. That's how we say it.
That's how we're going to say it.
Woman who is with Elijah, and he is basically telling her this promise of God that he's been told. It's a promise that she's not even asked for, not even thought of, or anything. But he tells her that she will bear a son. Yeah. And she's basically telling Elijah, like, don't lie to me. Don't give me this false sense of hope of something, because she knew her husband was elder. They hadn't had any children thus far. So she just thought it wasn't in the cards for them. But here's Elijah telling her that. And it was almost a year to the day that he told her that she birthed a son. Mm-hmm. And, the scripture says that he grew and became older and things. And then it was one day his father was out in the fields, and he goes to his father saying that he basically had a headache, right? His head was hurting, and things. And so the father said, take this child to his mother. Which I thought,
typical father.
Yeah,
Something's going on. Get him there. Get him there.
Yeah, get him to his
like
mom. The mom will know what to do.
Generations.
Yeah. And so servants take him to his mom, and it says that he sat in his mother's lap until noon, and then he died. And at that point, the Shunammite woman takes him upstairs, lays him in his bed. And places him in the bed and things, and then she shuts the door, leaves him there, and then travels to Elijah. She's going back to the man who's like gave her this promise, right? And I can imagine her thinking the whole ride there of, I told this guy not to give me any false hope.
Told him not to do this to me.
And the promise did come, but now it's being taken away. And why is this, right? Why am I going to have to go through this heartache of a promise that I didn't even ask for? But she makes it to Elijah. She tells him, and Elijah's like, God didn't tell me this. Like, how did I not know that he was dead?
This has happened.
Because, as, Chad mentions in the sermon, at that time, Elijah, a lot of things God told Elijah. He was prophesying the future and stuff. So Elijah was used to being in the know, I guess. So he's a little thrown back by this. So he tells his servant, give her my staff and have her go back.
Oh, he sent the servant.
Yes. To put this over his face and different things. And the Shunammite woman actually said that she wasn't going to leave Elijah.
Yeah.
You know,
she wanted
like I'm saying right here.
there.
Yeah.
Eyes on you, buddy.
Yep. But that didn't work. Elijah's servant going and putting that on his face, it didn't work. So he comes back, and Elijah's like, well, let's go together. Mm-hmm. And so then at that time, Elijah and the mom all then go together back to the son. Elijah goes into the room and basically lays down, from what I understand. I think I understood that right.
Lay down, bent down over him, something like that.
Yeah. And he comes back, right?
Yep.
And but yeah, that's kind of the long story. Get very, very.
It's a great layman's term, because a lot of people, maybe they don't have a Bible at home.
Yeah.
And it's nice to recap it in just regular verbiage, because this is a very powerful story.
Yeah.
So one of the things, before we dive into the points, that I noticed was that she also had prepared the room for Elijah, where when her son passed, she put her son. So she put her son in Elijah's room. So she already knew that man was righteous, was a source of God. And so she thought, of all the things, like, this wasn't specifically in the Bible, but to me it was like, this woman knew that if she couldn't get him to Elijah, but she had put him in a room that she had prepared for that man as he come through and he would visit. So she didn't really even know, probably the first time she prepared that room for Elijah, that would be the room she'd lay her son down in.
Yeah.
And to me, that was just like, holy moly, as a mom, because you kind of look back and you notice those things, as a mom. So, and I have another point after we talk about the next few points that I just wrote down randomly. But Chad's first point was, there is nothing harder than holding a dead promise. Than holding a dead promise.
Yeah.
I know that we're all moms. We have kids. I could not imagine what this woman was going through.
Yeah.
She had this child for years, and she's held this baby, she's fed this baby, she's clothed this baby, and then all of a sudden he's gone.
Yeah. From a headache.
From, he just said his head hurt.
Yeah.
And it's just like, we all may have experienced this. We just may know people in our lives who have lost a child. And to even be a witness to that type of heartache is, I couldn't imagine. I could not imagine what she's going through. But the way she carried herself is just, there's no words besides a mom's going to do what a mom has to do.
Yeah.
Which is why Chad titled this.
Yeah.
Fight Like a Mother.
Yeah.
Moms are scary people.
Well, and he also said, Pastor Chad, he made a good point. He's like, as a mom, when, Elijah sent his servant, you would think that she would have just said, I'm going with you. I'm getting back to my kid. But instead she was like, no, I'm not leaving without you, Elijah, because she knew that's where
the promise
her faith came from.
Yeah.
And that's that was so powerful to me.
Yeah.
Because that could not have been easy for her to stay, because just that motherly part of you is just like, I have to get to my kid right now.
Yeah.
I have to. You know, we've had calls from the school. We've had, things happen, and I'm just like in my car in pajamas, like I'm getting there because my kid was hurt, or something happened. So for her to be like, I'm not moving from this spot is pretty powerful. And it shows a lot of her faithfulness, because he sent his servant. So she was trusting that it would be taken care of.
Yeah.
And then they get there and it's not.
Yeah.
So she kind of had that double whammy of holding a promise that it kind of wilted, as Chad used the term earlier.
Yeah.
So I could not imagine that.
Yeah. One of the things in that part of the story too, when she goes and lays him in the bed and then goes, something that stuck with me that Chad had said was, moms, we have that intuition. Sometimes I know I have felt it in things with my kids, but the tenacity and the persistence and stuff too. It's like, he died and she knew that there was something that she needed to do to bring him back. She didn't just immediately go to the father and say, our son's died. She didn't try to bury him or start the mourning process. She knew that she needed to go back to Elijah and confront him about this, that there had to be something more.
Yeah, she said, go get me a donkey.
Yeah.
I'm heading out.
Yeah.
I'm going.
Bring it to me and don't slow down.
Yeah, I felt that so hard, because there have been times where, I've had that gut feeling and you think it's the end, but I just like, no, like something's stirring in me that I've got to fight a little bit more for this. Like God has a different plan. And I just love that he instills that into us as mothers. Because Lane's had an issue before, and I think I've shared this story, but there was just a point he wasn't even 2 years old, and we fought, and there were so many times I wanted to give up, but just something stirred in me. And I'm not the type of person to kind of overstep things. I kind of go with the flow. I never want to shake anything. But in those times, like just something told me, no, you've got to call and stay on these people.
Yeah.
And it was a medical situation. So I was having to call doctors and call these different things. And it's just not me. And I'm just, but like God, you do what you had to do for your kids. And through all that, God showed up in so many ways, and we got done what we needed to get done. And, Lane's still here today. And so it just, that story stuck out with me so much in this too, of that intuition that God gives you and that feeling.
You just
know. If you stick with him, the courage that he can give you, because like I said, that's not usually me, but he gave me the power to make those calls, to be bold, and to fight for my son.
Sometimes I feel like too, when it's as a mom, we're tired because maybe we are having to like fight that battle.
Yeah.
And it's so hard too, because I think there's so much pressure put on moms, like just with everything.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we just get tired and, and without God's help, but sometimes we get to that point. I know, like for myself, even when Izzy was a baby, like I was at the point, like Pastor Chad said today, we know when it's that spiritual thing too. So it's, we start fighting even more. And I just knew like, the devil was putting bad things in my mind. Like I wasn't a good mom. I wasn't doing the right things. And it was to the point where I was like Pastor Chad, I was like, well, maybe I'm just not fit to be a mom.
Yeah.
I'm going to give up. But in that moment, it's like,
you just know.
God, I just need you.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's always there. And I think sometimes, we get so caught up in the mom game that it's like, we just have to rely on him completely.
That's right.
And that's how, she showed her faith in that. She was like, I'm not leaving without you.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this without you.
I mean, and it's like we've lived through some hard things, and you're just like, how do I walk through this and also show my children that you can hold on to God? Because it's not easy, because our human nature is to retaliate or to be angry or things like that, and to have to. And it's not easy. That's what people think, is that they're just super nice all the time. Let me just be very clear. There's a lot of internal work that goes on to be nice a lot of the time. Like the majority of the time, it's hard. But I found the stronger my spiritual walk is, the easier it is. But doing that as an example is a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Because listen, I got kids that play sports, okay? Listen, sports mom, different than podcast me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm confessed. We're not Catholic, but I'm going to. We were at a lacrosse tournament this weekend, and it was the junior varsity team. My son plays on the lacrosse team, and we had played all day. It was their third game. They were playing to solidify whether they were in third place or fourth place. Like, this wasn't even a championship game, y'all. It just wasn't. And the other team we're playing is literally taking our kids out. Like, injuring them to where the coach is having to go out on the field. I did it. I yelled across the field. Does everyone know we're not playing for first place in this game? Just check it.
Yeah.
Girl, I've been there. And
because I was like, these aren't even my children, but my kid's on that field. And if y'all mow my child down, it's going to take over. Jesus and my guardian angel to hold me back up here, because
there was one time that God said to me, he said, Mandy, I've got her. It's okay. Yeah. You need to calm down.
See, the Lord does speak through us in various situations.
Yeah.
But it
for sure.
It is. And like he said, when the devil deals darkness, you got to run to righteousness. And in those moments, even in the funny example I'm giving, is that you have to turn around and you have to say, okay, I'm going to love these people like Jesus. Now, I did yell across the field, but it was very nice compared to what, I could have said. But like, Katie, I'm sure you were on your knees in prayer, and in times when you've had to go through things with your kids, there's probably times that our kids don't even realize we're praying.
No, they don't.
They don't know the nights we've cried in bed to pray over them because we're scared too.
Yeah.
And we can't show them that we're scared.
Yep.
That it looks dark for us too. Maybe even darker because the fear of losing them is so heavy.
Yeah.
It's so heavy. And so turning around and knowing where to go, which I love that the woman knew where to go. She's like, listen, saddle up that donkey. We got out back. Which, by the way, I circled donkey because this is just another example of a woman riding a donkey for something to happen with her son.
That's right.
Just saying, just throwing that out there. Pastor Mason, Pastor Trey, Travis, somebody, Chad, y'all want to give us some spiritual guidance on a donkey? Just go ahead.
He said too, he was like, she threw her earrings off, put her hair in a ponytail.
She's like, we going.
And we're gone.
We're going.
And that's like everyday life.
But she looked at her husband's like, girl, it ain't the right day.
Yeah.
And she said, it's all right. Like, move out of my way, sir.
Yeah.
Me and this donkey's leaving.
Yeah.
But she did what she had to do because she knew where to go.
Yeah.
Just like now we know where to go, right? That's why we talk about having a small group, having family, is surround yourself with people who are going to look to Jesus, who are going to look to fight those battles with you in that way. Because Chad also said you cannot overcome a supernatural adversary without a supernatural God.
That's right.
There's so much power in that prayer. And a prayer doesn't have to be, something that's just something that you say, certain words. I mean, you were talking about, I'm sure Katie was on her knees. I mean, there's been lots of times that I've gone in my closet and I'm just on my knees and I'm like, God, I don't know what else to do. I just need you there.
Yeah.
A
car ride. That's why I used to have an hour commute to work, and that's, we put on my praise and worship music, and just that was my time. And especially during that time, just asking for guidance and healing and all of the things. Yeah. So
listen, we pray hard as mamas, but we will also come at you. So don't don't test us. Don't test us.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that if anybody would have got in the Shumite woman's way, it would have not been good for them.
No,
it wouldn't have. And I love that she was like, I'm not leaving you, buddy. Listen, Elijah, you promised me this.
Yeah.
I believed it. I still believe it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with you until we see this through. Because regardless, she knew. And that's like sometimes, I work in the insurance industry. I deal with people who they lose loved ones and we have to process claims.
Yeah.
And explaining to my kids what I do, they're just like, that's so hard. And I was like, well, in my life, I know that regardless, I'm gonna go to heaven. And to have that peace is what we work so hard for here at Victory Hill, is so that people can come to know Jesus regardless of where they're from, regardless of what battles they're facing, whether you're a single mom, recently divorced and been remarried 3 times mom, whether you have lost one, you've lost your mom, you've lost a child, you're a foster mom, you're just somebody's mom that they showed up at your house one day and now you're their mom. They're there for Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day, all the holidays. We fight for all of you all too, because we want you to have that peace in what heaven is, because the peace of heaven gives you peace for you and your children.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the point that we're kind of alluding to too is just winning the fight requires the willingness to stay in God's sacred space. And I think that that's what, she was doing there, right? She didn't want to leave Elijah because she knew, like, you gave me this promise from God. So she knew that was the sacred space, right? And so she didn't want to leave that and stuff, because she knew that's where the power was. And that was where the healing was going to be. That's where so I think that's something huge too. I know during all of that time, there's time that I wanted to find comfort, maybe in other things, but I knew God was the power and that was the way, and that's where I needed to get my direction. And, going back to what you said, surrounding myself with others who believed that too, I can remember calling my mother-in-law because she's a fighter for sure.
That woman is,
and I can remember she's who kind of helped encourage me to make some of these phone calls and walked me through, when you call, this is what you're going to say, because she knew I didn't have the words.
We just need that because we don't have it at the time.
So that was such a good and powerful point, and again, I'll say it's winning the fight requires the willingness to stay in God's sacred space.
And I wrote down under that, that as moms, a lot of times we want to be there and we want to fix things.
Yeah.
But we have to let God work it out.
That's
because she knew in her heart, I guarantee you it shattered her to not leave with his servant.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Oh, I'm sure it was
but
hard.
she knew that there was a plan. There's just something, like you said, that gut instinct that she's like, this is not over.
Yeah.
It's not done. You promised me this. It's not over. And so she was willing to stay in that sacred space and to give up control.
That's right. And that's something, I mean, that I struggle with is the control
same,
piece.
girl, same.
And even still to this day, you know, as simple as sports, you know, you mentioned, you know, playing baseball or football and the thought of a ball coming after them or a tackle or something, you know. And I just have to, you know, cover myself in prayer and be like, you know, God, I know you have a purpose for him. And no matter what happens, like, you've got him.
Yep.
We've been through too much already, and you've already shown your promises that he's going to be okay. But having to give up that control as a mom,
it is very hard.
It is. And then, as Chad mentioned, you know, he talked about his mom praying for him.
He did. He shared
you know,
a very
over
great
and
story of his life today.
And I think that that's a very important job that we have as moms, is just praying over our kids and praying for our kids, praying for their future. You know, something that I've started doing that other moms have told me is like even praying for their future spouses, their future kids, and all of those things. I think that's just one of the most important jobs that we have is
and
that
sometimes
power
I feel
of prayer.
Like our prayers change. Like now that mine are older, you know, they get their driver's license.
Maybe has more experience. We're in stair steps.
And like
let me
prayers
pause.
go.
Let me
Are you
point
going to say
out
what I'm going to say?
So we are in different phases, and we each have a son whose name is Lane.
Lane. Yeah. I was going to say that.
That is true.
She has a Lane. I have a Lane. She has a Lane.
So
we have a lot in common.
we do. Sorry, Mandy. Go ahead.
No, but it's true, you know. And you think, because like now, I mean, I've always wanted my kids to like, as a mom, I'm thinking, okay, when they get older, you know, I pray for. But like now, it's starting to become even more real.
It's real.
Like, you know, I watch them leave in the car, and I'm like, Lord, please protect them all day when they're in the car, when they're at school, you know. And then it's like now I'm thinking, soon, you know, Izzy's going to be thinking about all these other things. And it's like, Lord, please just bring the right people into their life. And, you know, it's just every day we have new prayers as a mom. And I think for me, we stay so busy and I'm like, I need to pray more. You know, I need to be praying more. And I know that God knows our hearts, but you know, it's just that spiritual battle. And that was for me today. I feel like I learned, hey, I just need to take that time, even if I just write and things down and be in that space.
Yeah. That's right.
Because we all need that as moms, you know, for our kids.
That's right.
Yeah, I like to speak to that. My Lane is one of his goals. If I don't know if everyone is familiar with Gatton Academy. It is like a high level high school in Kentucky that you very, very smart, gifted kids, you know, go to, and that's his goal. And he is. And I'm not bragging, but he is very smart. He's way smarter than me. But that's his goal. So the next 2 years, his freshman and sophomore year, he's working towards that. But what that means for me as a mom is that his junior and senior year, if he gets in, he's living on Western Kentucky's campus. And yeah, that's next door. But just to know, you know, my child is not going to be as close to me as he was, or I'm not going to see him as often, you know, as a divorced parent, you know, you only get so much time with your kid. And to be like, I'm going to get even less time with my kid before he's even really in college. And it's just kind of like, okay, girl, no, you got to check yourself. We're going to Jesus, check ourselves and just pray over it, because I want him to chase his dreams. And to know that I got him covered in prayer. We're going to do all the things we can do to get him there. And that if it's in God's plan, it's going to happen.
That's right.
I had an aunt tell me one time, she said, Mandy, before you have kids, she said, you know, you have to remember, she said, they're not yours.
No.
She said, God's letting you borrow them for a little while to show them his love.
That's
and
so
she
true.
said, and from the beginning, they are his.
That's right.
And so every day I'm like, Lord, thank you. Well, not every day. I need to do more. I'm like, thank you for letting me, you know, just borrow them, you know, and I think that
they're
like,
loners.
that's always stuck with me, because I'm like, they're not really mine, but God's let me borrow them for a little while. So I just have to know that he has
like
a plan
a rental
for
car,
them, you know,
a very expensive
He has
rental
a
car.
plan, so.
Thank you, Jesus.
No, that's a good point.
It is.
Very good point.
Has a plan.
But there's peace in that.
There is.
Right? There's peace in that, because if we're doing our job as moms, Sorry, dads. I know that you guys are like supposed to be the spiritual leaders of the household, but you might as well just get out of my way. Okay. When I got something from God, I'm coming through with it. Okay. Yeah. So just I'll make room, as we say here at Victory Hill. Because sometimes, I'm sorry, but God uses women and moms in such a way that is so understated. And a lot of times he uses them and doesn't even have to know their name.
Yeah.
Some of them ride a donkey a lot. Again, I would like for someone to tell me more about that. But one of the last things that I circled, which is a random thing that I circled because Chad didn't even talk about it, was that after Elijah bent over him the second time, he sneezed 7 times. The biblical meaning of 7 is completion.
Yeah.
So she had this promise. It was beautiful and it was great. And then it died. And she was heartbroken, but she held on.
Yeah.
She held on. She went to that sacred spot and it was completed.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It was completed. So you're welcome, Chad.
No, I'm glad you circled that.
If you want some sermon points before next time, I'm just kidding. Don't come to me.
That Emily kind of goes back to, you were talking earlier about, some of the moms that have lost a child. Because, I know some of those moms and one of them, it was her only child. And so I think, the heartbrokenness, but then being able to come back to that sacred place, after they're gone. And that I can't imagine, like that would be so hard.
Living life would be hard without them.
Yes, but just knowing that you have that sacred spot and that's what you have.
And that one day,
faith and peace.
You're going to be reunited.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know that sounds so cliche. And I know that that's not ever easy to hear when you've lost someone, period. But it is so true. I mean, that's the whole point of, giving our lives to God and following him, because everything's going to be made right one day. But the last thing that I was going to say, I was going to circle back to, they should never give me a microphone, is that when she, we go back to where the woman knew Elijah, he came through, she prepared this room for him that he had used so many times, just so many times. And in her faithfulness, these actions that she did was, preparing this room, probably serving him, giving him a place to be. And then even after the promise, right, she still had this spot for him. Her faithful actions were preparation for her miracle. Even though there was a dark place in her miracle, it still was completed. So how many times when we're struggling to be faithful and we know God is leading us somewhere that's hard and we want to give up, are we preparing for something amazing, for a miracle? And so if you're out there and like Mandy said, maybe you've lost a child, maybe you just recently lost your mother or another family member. I know this is Mother's Day, so we focus a lot on that, but you're feeling lost. You're feeling like you're in this hard place, this dark place. I really, really implore you to find a space, whether that is your closet, your car, the front steps of this church or another church that you go to. Go to that sacred space and just talk it out with God.
And keep fighting. I mean, fighting. Pastor Chad said that. He said sometimes when we ask God's promises, we see it right then. And sometimes we just have to wait. And in that waiting, we just have to keep fighting and worshiping.
That waiting can be a long time.
Yeah.
It really can. I mean, there's still some prayers I'm waiting on.
Yeah. But just like we've talked about a lot of the times that the things that we are having to really fight for, God is making a move in us. And when, you get to the end of that battle, when you look back, how maybe that shaped or formed you and how much more appreciative you are at the result. And things like that. So, there are definitely things that are immediate miracles, but then there's also some we have to fight for. And, I think God instills in us mothers that tenacity, that persistence. And that's a strong characteristic that, men are built different than women, and we're wired differently. And God did that on purpose. And so I think that, part of his plan too is these battles to ensure that those characteristics are instilled in us hard. And it's all for his purpose and his glory. And it's phenomenal if you really sit back and you look at it all. And
It is. Things. And we just have that fight in us, not even for our kids, but for several things.
Listen, I'll fight for somebody else's kids.
And our husbands. We just have that fight in us.
Yeah. Most days we'll fight for our husbands.
Yeah. Sometimes.
But now you mentioned that, I do think, like, even in other kids, it doesn't even have to be our kids.
If I'm out and I see one of y'all's kids and somebody's not being nice, you better believe the mama bear in me is going to be like, no, not today. You'll be laying hands.
But something I wanted to circle back to is at the very beginning, he had mentioned, God has many names, and so do moms, right?
Yeah.
And I think that can correlate to dads too as we get into Father's Day, next month. But that's something that has kind of encouraged me to go and really look at all the different names. And
have you been called bruh yet?
Yeah, no.
It's coming.
Yeah. But has really kind of encouraged me to dive deeper into those names. And then what are the different names that he's put on me as a mom that I need to maybe, okay, I'm good at this one, but do I need to improve on this one? Because my kids need all of that, or others around me may need a piece of that. And that just really stuck out with me early in his sermon of, God has all the different names.
And sometimes the names may not be from God too.
Yeah.
I mean, that we carry as a mom.
So
that we try to carry, and it's like, no, we shouldn't carry that because that's not
Which
from
points
him.
me to what I was going to say. My kids and I have talked about, they're like, well, why is this? I'm like, listen, I'm giving you grace because it's the first time that you've been an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
It's the first time that I have been 38 with kids your age. I've never done this before.
Yeah.
Like, we're all still doing this the first time together. Let's show some grace, people.
Yeah.
So show yourself some grace. If you're out there again struggling, like, you're doing great, honey. Just keep pushing. Like, it's the first time you've probably had to deal with that.
Yeah.
Like, it's every time. Like you've never had a child about to graduate high school, right?
Don't remind me.
And then, hers are getting old. It's just like, we've never walked through this. So, dads, show a little grace.
That's right.
We'll give you grace in June. Okay? Only in June. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I think that as parents, that's something that we need to be able to work on together, even with our blended family. Grace has got to be a constant.
Yeah.
It has to be, because otherwise you're just going to be at each other's throats constantly. And I've developed a saying, not my bills, not my business. Because if I ain't paying for it, not my business.
Yeah.
And really and true, it's just a funny way of showing grace, of saying, I don't have to know.
Yeah.
I don't have to be in that circle, because as long as you're taking care of, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good. And I think that's, and I have dark humor, so I'm sorry. That's why everything's kind of a joke. But it's just a way of making light to ease it up a little bit, because grace goes a long way.
It does.
You got to give yourself grace as a mom.
And I think our first and foremost is, God, showing our children God's love. I mean, that is, as a mom, that's our number one. We point them to Him.
Yeah.
And, India says that a lot on her posts and things. And I'm like, but it's so true.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes we get caught up in all the extras.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that's our most important. And as long as He's in the picture, then
that's right.
Then
he said moms have superpowers, and one of the most important of those is the power of love.
Yeah.
And and that's one of God's, right? For us, is His love for us. That's why He sent His Son for us, and things. So that's what I wrote down as well, is the power of love. And so we just have to remember, at the end of the day, just let them know and show them, because you do, right?
Yep.
And but are we showing that? Are we letting them know? And things, because that is, we don't think about it as being a superpower, but it really is, because when they're struggling one day or something, they're going to know or remember how much my mama loves me. And you know what? She loves me because she loved God so much, and God loves me too. And just maybe when that will really get them through sometimes. So don't forget that. Like, your love is a superpower, Mom.
1 Corinthians 13 says, now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest is love.
That's right.
It's biblical. So, we are so glad that everybody's been joining us. I will say, for all of our listeners out there, we have a couple more weeks of the podcast to come for season 1. And then we will take a short break and then start season 2 up again. But we're thankful for everybody who sits down with us for these conversations to circle back to the sermon. And if you have a mom out there or a mom figure or you're a mom, we want to say Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
If you're a male, please tell somebody Happy Mother's Day. Celebrate them all week.
Yeah.
This is probably going to come out on Tuesday. Celebrate them all week.
That's
love
right.
on the moms because we have a super PAC. Yeah. Don't forget it.
And dads, we'll love on you next month.
That's right.
We got you. We got you. But we hope you all have a great week, and we can't wait to come back for the next 2 weeks and close out this influence series with you guys on the podcast. So we will see you next time.